deathless titans placed upon the face of the earth 3 generations of men, the first of them being men of gold. Becoming too close to gods themselves, Cronus ended their time on earth with an eternal sleep. A second generation came to be, the men of silver. Unwilling to serve the titans and make sacrifices upon the holy altars, as all men shall do, they were condemned to dwell under the earth for all eternity. Finally, a third generation, the men of bronze, a brazen race, sprung from the ash tree, terrible and strong are they. Join me as I tell you the tales of the men of bronze. This is Dragon's Blood. Beware Brontes. Episode 24. Gamden woke to laughter and friendly voices that gently coaxed him back to consciousness. As he opened his eyes, Sunisret said, "Just one more bottle. I promise, just one more. Then that's it." Minkari reminded him, "But that was what you said 2 flagons ago," holding the latest flagon upside down without a drop falling to the ground. "At the rate you're drinking, Mutal's cellars will be dry in no time. No time at all." Minkari laughed out loud and fell backward into a pile of pillows, raising his own wine cup. His heavy vestment replaced with a light green toga and sandals. He shared a clinai with Sunisret, who was dressed in the same fashion. Across from them, Akim lounged on another clinai, in a gold toga and sandals. In the center of the room, a large fire burned, casting red and orange light about the large chamber. On the other side of the fire, Mutalu and the man who called himself the blind inventor reclined on their own clinai, both in white toga. Slowly, Gamden sat up. The feeling of déjà vu was gone, as well as the nausea. Sunisret was the first to notice him and said, "Do you feel better? You had us worried there for a while. No one knew what was happening." Pointing at the blind inventor, he continued, "Mutal said he knew what was happening. By the way, that's his name, Mutal. That you were experiencing... What did you call it again?" "Second sight." Mutal finished the sentence. "Second sight. That's right. That's what you called it. Second sight." Sunisret paused for a moment, then continued with a confused expression on his face. "I have no idea what it means. I'm just glad that you're okay." Gamden tried to stand, but a wave of dizziness came over him and forced him to sit back down. "I feel pretty good, other than the dizziness that won't go away." "Ah, yes, you'll get used to that in time," responded Mutal in a sympathetic voice. He leaned back as he scratched his snub nose, his thin lips a wry smile as he fixed his brown eyes on Gamden. "How do you know so much about what's happening to me?" asked Gamden. "Ah, yes, my son," placing a hand on Mutalu's shoulder, "told me that you said it was like you were in a dream you had no control over. That's what it's like for me, too." "How long has this been happening to you?" queried Gamden. "Ah, yes. I lost my sight when I was a young man, as a student at the Temple of Koas. It was after that I had my earliest second sight." Mutal clapped his hands 3 times. The door off to their right crashed open, and a young servant boy ran to his side. "Bring food, water, and wine for everyone. Quickly now." The boy ran off, shouting all the way to the kitchen. Where was I now? Ah, yes. Second sight. Mutal paused for a moment to put his thoughts together, and gave his nose a quick scratch. My second sight allows me to see important events that the gods want me to see, such as us sitting in this room together. He swept his arm before them. Except for you. Mutel pointed directly at Sunisret. The old man in my second sight never said anything about you. That's eerie, responded Sunisret. How Mutel can point me out when he is completely blind. I think I know how he does it, said Gamden. I am starting to remember the second sight I was experiencing just before we got here. In my second sight, I saw us here talking as well. There are other events that I remember, but I know I have never been to the places that I see. More and more memories are coming to me all the time, but it's only what the gods want me to see. It's all so confusing. Minkari piped up. An old man? An old man? Mutel must be talking about Kefu. Who is this Kefu? Mutel quizzed. Minkari described his old friend down to the last wrinkle on his forehead, then added, He came to me in a dream, telling me to travel to his mansion, where I would meet Gamden and Akim. I was also told that if I followed Gamden, I would be witness to miraculous events. And just like you, I was never told about Sunisret. Ah, yes. That is the old man that came to me in my second sight. Mutal sat forward, scratched his nose and asked, I wonder why Kefu had no knowledge of you. Gamden stood up slowly and said, I have a question. Where are my clothes? Gamden looked down, referred to the purple toga he was wearing. Feeling around his neck, and not seeing his pouch, he continued in a frantic tone. Where is my pouch? I can't lose my pouch. Akim sat up and reassured. Everything is fine. Our clothes have been taken to be laundered and mended. And we're all getting new boots, too, Sunisret interjected. Akim swallowed the last of his wine in his cup and continued. Your pouch is on your klinai, under the blanket, on the left. Gamden sat back down quickly and threw the blanket onto the floor. He found Kepri, curled up asleep, and the pouch between his front paws, still bulging with gold coins and diamonds. Irritated that he was disturbed, Kepri let out a long, loud meow. Visibly relieved, Gamden said, Thank you for taking care of me and my friends. The door on the right crashed open again. 5 servants emerged, 3 carrying trays, overflowing with water and wine, fruits and meats. The other 2 went to the opposite side of the room and carried over tables for the guests and host. When the trays were unloaded and the wine cups refilled, the servants scurried out of the room. Scratching Kepri's head, Gamden continued. We have been on the road a long time. The wildlands are unforgiving and mysterious. Friends, even new ones, are a blessing. Akim raised his cup. To Mutal and his son. Gamden, Minkari, and Sunisret raised their cups. Friends well met, they all said in unison, then emptied their cups with loud gulps. I'm famished, Gamden said. How long was I asleep for? Minkari responded, You slept through the night, and now it's early afternoon. Nothing was waking you up. Nothing at all. That's right, Sunisret agreed through a mouthful of salted pork. Swallowed, then continued. We tried everything. Not even splashing water in your face would wake you up. 4 large dogs were roused from their slumber by the smell of food, wandered over and waited patiently for some scraps. Even Kepri couldn't resist the smell of food and sat up, yawning. Gamden shared a piece of his chicken with the familiar. Akim tore off a leg from a roasted chicken, devoured it quickly, and threw the bone to one of the dogs, then said, "Mutal is going to give us a tour of his compound when we finish our meal." Gamden asked, "Why are you called the blind inventor?" "Ah, yes." Mutal scratched his nose, then continued his story. "Before I lost my sight, I was a designer of buildings and bridges and the likes. When my sight was taken from me, and the second sight began, I was shown how to plan weapons and great fortifications. This allowed the 3 kingdoms to defend from all the different peoples trying to invade." Mutal asked his son to fill his wine cup, took a drink, then went on. "This didn't sit well with the Eastern Khans. There were so many assassination attempts that I lost count. This paradise," Mutal swept his arm before him to encompass the entire compound, "was shown to me in my second sight. I was shown exactly how to get here and how many people to take with me to make this place work. When we have rested after our meal," looking directly at Gamden, "there is something that I made that you will recognize." When they had finished their lunch and refreshed themselves with water and wine, Mutal invited the party to join him in a tour of the compound. Gathering his canes, he led the way with his son at his side. Mutal directed them outside into a warm, overcast afternoon. Through the corrals first, where Sunisret picked out a goat for the night's sup. Next was the tailor's shop, to check on the progress of their clothes. The cobbler, seeing them, ran across the way from his shop to inform them that their new boots were ready whenever they wanted them. Sunisret, excited about getting new boots, followed the cobbler back to try on his footwear. Moving on through the cookhouse, where everyone in the compound ate communally, fresh breads and pastries tempted their salivating taste buds. As they were just about to exit, booming footsteps could be heard coming quickly toward them. Looking behind them, presented Sunisret, running toward and shouting, "Hey, wait for me!" Seeing a basket of fresh-baked bread, he stopped in his tracks to take a couple of loaves for the rest of the tour. Joining the group, he said, "These new boots are great." His sandals gone and replaced with black, knee-high leather boots. "It's like I'm not even wearing them." With a smile on his face, Gamden said, "You look silly wearing those boots and that toga, you big bastard." "I don't care. I'm never taking these off. And look, the cobbler put iron caps over the toes. These boots are gonna last forever." Before they went on, Minkari said, "I'm sorry, gentlemen, but I am old, and my legs are getting tired from all the walking. I'm not sure how much more I can take." "Ah, yes. How thoughtless of me." Mutal took his son by the arm. "Go get a nice docile donkey for our friend to ride while we continue the tour." With dust at his heels, Mutelu ran off to the corrals. In no time at all, he returned leading a little donkey with a thick blanket across its back. "Will you please lift me onto the back of the ass?" asked Minkari. "I'm just too short." He handed his walking stick off to Gamden as Akim picked him up. The next stop was to the new water wheels that had been constructed. Mutal said as he started walking. Ah, yes. When we first arrived here and began clearing the land, the centaur, Chiron, came to me. Minkari audibly gasped and interrupted. Chiron was here? Chiron was here? Oh, how I would like to meet Chiron. Minkari clapped his hands in excitement. Does he come here often? Would I be able to meet him? Ah, yes. Unfortunately, he rarely has time now, with more and more of the eastern wildmen invading his forests. Mutal added, but don't despair. Chiron knows everything that goes on in his domain, and he may take an interest in travelers the likes of you. Now, where was I? Ah, yes. Chiron came to me and showed me where a large vein of coal was easily accessible, as well as a rich deposit of iron and other necessary metals. But if Chiron protects his forests, asked Gamden, why would he let you clear the land and mine the earth? Ah, yes. He had no choice in the matter, Mutal answered. Zeus commanded him to aid me in my efforts. The closer they got to the water wheels, Mutal explained that he had to construct the largest one of the most complex contrivances yet. The water wheel was made to work large bellows to get the furnaces up to an incredible temperature. The next stop was the foundry, where men were pouring molten metal into casts, and the blacksmiths were swinging large cross-peen hammers, flattening iron on their anvils. Ah, yes. We built this foundry to trade with the centaurs, explained Mutal, as well as the caretaker from the roadhouse. The centaurs want metal tips for their spears, breastplates and armor, plus pots and pans and other objects for their everyday living needs. The caretaker needs goods to keep his roadhouse operating, and other supplies to sell to the travelers that pass through his lodgings. Then, we here at the compound need all of those things, plus much more. I have not seen any armed men here at the compound since we arrived, Akam mentioned. How do you protect yourselves from attack from invaders? Before Mutal gave an explanation, he opened the door into his workroom. When everyone was inside and the door closed, he continued, Ah, yes, we live deep in the wildlands. If you don't know exactly how to get here, you would never find us. And if you did stumble upon us, it would be out of sheer luck. That's if the forest doesn't kill you, or the animals don't eat you. While Mutal was talking, he made his way unerringly through the dark to a window and opened the shutters, flooding the room with light. Even if an army tried to invade the wildlands, the centaurs would know of it, rally the forest and the creatures within it to stop any invasion in its tracks. The light from the open window revealed walls with chalkboards filled with drawings of fantastic machines and mathematical formula. In the corner of the room, a mannequin as tall as Sunisret stood. The mannequin wore on the left leg Grieve, Pullions, Quis. The left arm, Pauldron, Rebrace, Cowder. The vambrace and the gauntlet were fused together, not meant for a hand. Thorax and abdomen covered in a breastplate, meant for a woman. Fold and tasset, all in a patina film. At the feet was a medium shield, round with a symbol emblazoned in the center. Ah, yes. I believe that you recognize this, said Mutal, pointing at the mannequin in armor. Gamden closed his eyes and grabbed hold of Sunisret's arm to steady himself as a flood of new images invaded his memories. Yes, I recognize that, Gamden agreed. And I know why you made it. But I don't recognize the symbol on the shield. I have seen that symbol before, remarked Sunisret. Look for episode 25 of Dragon's Blood, Beware Brontes, on YouTube.